This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Rivian and Volkswagen caught the industry by surprise when they announced their joint venture this week. The most amazing part is that the story never leaked, even though both companies have been working on a deal since early this year. And Reuters has the fascinating story on how the deal got together. It says the Volkswagen Group secretly shipped some camouflaged Audis to Rivian's operations in California earlier this year, where they were stripped of their existing domain architecture and outfitted with Rivian Zonal electronic architecture just to see how the cars would perform. And apparently, they must have passed with flying colors because VW announced it will invest as much as $5 billion into Rivian. And this makes us wonder what's going to happen with VW's Cariad software business unit. VW created Cariad in 2020 to develop software stacks for all of the company's brands. But it quickly ran into delays and problems, and VW was pouring money into the division. Those failures were a key reason why VW CEO Herbert Diess was let go in 2022. Then last year, the CEO, CFO, and CTO of Cariad were fired, and 2,000 of the unit's 6,000 software engineers were laid off as the software unit posted a loss of 2.4 billion euros. As Cariad continued to flounder, it caused critical new car launches to be delayed. That's when Porsche decided it couldn't afford to wait around anymore and invested in a Silicon Valley software company called Applied Intuition. Volkswagen also decided it couldn't wait around either and invested 2.4 billion euros in Horizon Robotics in China for help in software and for autonomous technology, as well as $2.4 billion into Xpeng for help in software and EVs. That was okay for the Chinese market. But VW also needed an architecture and software stack that it could use outside of China, which is why it turned to Rivian. And so, with its software bases covered in China and the rest of the world, why the heck does VW need Cariad? Speaking of Rivian, it can't believe it's good luck. That potential $5 billion from VW ensures it will be able to launch its R2 vehicle with no fear of running out of cash before job one. Yesterday, CEO RJ Scaringe and his executive team showed industry analysts the progress they're making, especially when it comes to cutting costs. Rivian's second-generation RT truck and SUV are 20% cheaper to make than the first generation. Its R2 vehicles, which come out next year, will be 45% cheaper to make than the Gen 2, and it also teased a next-generation R3 vehicle. The cost savings will come from a variety of changes, including that zonal architecture that VW is so impressed with, as well as the propulsion system, the body, and the chassis. All the motors and inverters will now be built in-house, and it's going to a larger format 4695 cylindrical battery cell, which will be bigger and more energy dense than the 4680 cells that Tesla uses. And just to think, all of this will be much more possible to pull off because Cariad couldn't get its act together. EVs cost more when they need to be fixed, but they save thousands of dollars in fuel costs. Argonne National Lab estimated the fuel savings potential for replacing a gas-powered vehicle with the same-sized electric vehicle. And not surprisingly, pickups have the greatest potential for fuel cost savings when switching to an EV at 14 cents per mile, followed by vans and SUVs, which are at 11 cents per mile. And if you assume at least a 10-cent per mile savings average for most vehicles, that would translate to $100 per 1,000 miles or $10,000 after 100,000 miles, just in fuel savings by switching to an EV.
Intrepid's NeoVi Pi, allowing automotive engineers to interface, capture, and monitor vehicle data using Raspberry Pi. As a matter of fact, it's the automotive industry's first robust platform for Raspberry Pi, featuring Intrepid CAN-FD technology and Raspberry Pi compute module. The NeoVi Pi is designed for automotive environments allowing use with relative power ranges and applications. In addition, the NeoVi Pi enables you to use the Raspberry Pi for compute while avoiding additional development to adapt to network environments. That makes the NeoVi Pi powerful enough to solve your vehicle network problems, yet small enough to fit in your backpack. One of many Intrepid tools used for developing zonal architecture and software-defined vehicles.
The biggest drawback to fuel cell vehicles right now is there aren't many places to fill up. That's why Honda is only going to offer the fuel cell version of the CR-V in California, where there's the most stations, and it's going to pay for most of your hydrogen. Honda's also only going to lease the vehicle, and there's 3 options: 2, 3, or 6 years, with mileage ranges between 36,000 and 72,000 miles. With about $3,000 down, you can lease the vehicle for as little as $389 a month, which means it would cost you almost $31,000 just for the vehicle over the 6-year lease. But hydrogen costs would be really low because that 6-year lease also includes a $30,000 fuel credit. From what I could find, hydrogen costs are roughly $30 a kilogram right now, which means that $30,000 credit would cover about 70% of your lease. The fuel cell CR-V also has a nearly 18 kilowatt-hour battery pack that provides 29 miles of range, so that credit could last even longer. GM did a similar lease-only option with the EV1 because it just saw it as a test vehicle to learn from. But let's hope if customers like the fuel cell CR-V too, that Honda doesn't just send most of them to the crusher. J.D. Power released its annual initial quality study, which surveys new car buyers after 90 days of ownership. For the first time, the study incorporates franchise dealer repair visits, and here's some of the highlights. Ram is the highest-ranked brand in the study, followed by Chevrolet and Hyundai's in third place. Porsche is the highest-ranked premium brand, and it's followed by Lexus and Genesis respectively. At the other end of the spectrum, Audi and Volvo were second and third from the bottom, and Dodge was ranked dead last. J.D. Power also found that BEVs and PHEVs require more repairs than gas-powered vehicles, and that owners are taking them to the dealership at 3 times the rate as ICE vehicles. Some other things owners complained about include warnings for things like seat belts, rear seat reminders, and inaccurate or annoying alerts from driver assistance systems. Owners are also frustrated with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and said they had trouble connecting their phones. And lastly, more owners say their vehicles literally stink. All brands except for Kia and Nissan saw higher complaints of unpleasant interior smells compared to last year. Toyota and its Chinese joint venture partner GAC announced several new products to help it regain its competitiveness in China. Next year, they plan to introduce the first electric vehicle with an advanced driver assistance system that can park itself and autonomously drive on highways and roads. The JV is developing the system with Momenta, a startup that's collaborating with Mercedes on autonomous driving as well. GAC Toyota also said they plan to introduce a new LFP battery in 2026 or 2027 that could cut production costs of the BZ4X by 40%. Toyota is losing ground in China. While it's 5th overall in sales, its sales are down 22% in the first 4 months of the year. All Formula One power units, meaning the engine, electric motor, battery, and control electronics, come from manufacturers based in the UK, France, Italy, and Japan. But in 2026, Germany will be added to that list when Audi joins F1 as a factory racing team. While that's still almost 2 years away, Audi says it started development of its power unit in the spring of 2022 and is now testing under race conditions. Audi is taking over for the Sauber team, which consistently runs at the back of the pack. So it's not going to be easy to be competitive right out of the gate. But Audi is clearly trying to get the best head start that it can, And there's big rules changes coming in 2026, notably a 3x increase in electrical power, which could help level out the playing field. The Chinese auto industry is a juggernaut that will capture 1/3 of all new car sales globally by the end of this decade. That's according to an analysis from Alex Partners. It predicts that by 2030, Chinese automakers will be selling 9 million vehicles outside of China, including exports and vehicles made locally in various markets. That's because China is faster to market with vehicles that are cheaper to build, cheaper to buy, and have newer technology. The product cycle for some cars in China is now just 1.6 years compared to 5.4 years for non-Chinese legacy automakers. That shorter product cycle means new tech can be introduced far faster versus OEMs who only redesign a platform every 5 years or more. Genesis isn't changing the styling of the new Electrified G80 sedan that much, but it did add over 5 inches or 130 millimeters to the wheelbase. We do notice some design tweaks around the rear pillar, but that extra length is really about adding interior space. Genesis also gave rear seat passengers a couple of giant screens to look at. While its name says Electrified, this is a full battery electric car that was launched about 3 years ago, but no word on when the new version will go on sale yet. But that's a wrap for this show and this week. Don't forget we'll be on break all next week, so no dailies or after hours. However, we will post several videos that we think will interest you, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you have a good weekend and 4th of July if you'll be celebrating. See you again on the 8th.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. MEDC, where Michigan businesses are powering the future of mobility. Tejan Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility. And by ZF.
Trusting tires designed for the long haul. Because you'll always go the distance. For friends. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Alenza tires with an 80,000-mile limited warranty.
Michigan is leading the charge in mobility and innovation, and I can't think of a better state to be in.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Tejan Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
Wards is the industry leader for news, data, and analysis. That's why companies across the globe subscribe to our premium service, maybe even your own. Log in for subscriber access now. Check your company's intranet for details and rely on wardsauto.com to keep you informed.